My dear brothers and sisters, there are moments in life when silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. There are times when Allah, in His infinite wisdom, teaches us not through what we say, but through what we withhold. Sometimes the most powerful instruction is simple: keep your mouth shut. We live in a world where everyone wants to speak, react, comment, respond, and prove themselves right. Social media, arguments, family disputes, friendships, even religious discussions. Everyone wants the last word. But Allah teaches us something far deeper. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Not every thought deserves a voice. Not every reaction brings reward. How many relationships were destroyed by a sentence that could have been swallowed? How many sins were written because someone spoke while angry? How many regrets were born from words that were never meant to leave the heart? A single word can raise you, and a single word can destroy you. That is why controlling the tongue is not a small matter in Islam. It is a sign of maturity in faith. Allah knows your intention even when you stay silent. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to defend your honor in every gathering. When people accuse you falsely, mock you, or misunderstand you, your silence may be louder than 1,000 explanations. Allah is al-adl, the most just. He sees what they don't see. He knows what you don't say. There are moments when silence becomes an act of worship. When anger rises, silence saves you. When emotions overflow, silence protects you. When fitnah spreads, silence keeps your heart clean. Speaking in anger often leads to regret, but silence in anger often leads to reward. The strongest person is not the one who wins the argument, but the one who controls themselves when they are provoked. My dear brothers and sisters, Islam does not teach us to be silent always. It teaches us to speak with purpose. Speak when your words bring goodness. Speak when your words bring peace. Speak when your words remind others of Allah. But if your words will harm, divide, humiliate, or inflate your ego, then silence is better for you and safer for your akhirah. Remember, the tongue has no bones, yet it can break hearts. And once words leave your mouth, they never return. You can apologize, but the scar may remain. So choose silence when words are unnecessary. Choose silence when ego wants to speak. Choose silence when Allah would be more pleased with restraint than reaction. One day we will stand before Allah. Our hands will speak. Our eyes will testify. And yes, our tongues will be questioned. On that day, we will wish we had stayed quiet more often. We will wish we had spoken less and remembered Allah more. So my dear brothers and sisters, if Allah gives you the choice between proving yourself and protecting your akhirah, choose silence. If Allah gives you the choice between winning an argument and earning His pleasure, keep your mouth shut. Because sometimes silence is not just golden, it is obedience. My dear brothers and sisters, silence is not emptiness, and it is not a lack of confidence. Silence, when practiced with intention, is a sign of wisdom and inner strength. In a world that constantly pushes us to speak, respond, and react, choosing silence can be one of the most powerful decisions a believer makes. Allah has given us the ability to speak, but He has also given us the wisdom to know when not to. True intelligence is not measured by how much you talk, but how well you control your tongue. Many people assume that remaining silent means you are weak, afraid, or defeated. In reality, silence often shows self-control, patience, and trust in Allah. When you hold back your words, you are protecting your heart from arrogance and your record from unnecessary sins. Not every situation needs your opinion, and not every argument needs your participation. Sometimes walking away quietly is a greater victory than proving a point loudly. Silence becomes a shield in moments of anger. When emotions rise, the tongue becomes dangerous. Words spoken in anger often carry regret that lasts far longer than the anger itself. But when you stay silent during those moments, you give your heart time to settle and your mind time to think. That pause is mercy from Allah because it saves you from saying something that could hurt others or displease Him. A believer understands that staying quiet for a few moments can save years of remorse. There is also wisdom in silence when facing criticism or false accusations. You don't always need to explain yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. Allah knows the truth and His knowledge is enough. When you remain silent and patient, you are placing your trust in Allah's justice rather than your own defense. And Allah never abandons those who rely on Him sincerely. Silence allows reflection, and reflection strengthens faith. When the tongue rests, the heart begins to speak. You become more aware of your intentions, your weaknesses, and your relationship with Allah. Through silence, you learn humility. because you realize that not everything revolves around you or your words. You learn restraint, which is a sign of strong iman. My dear brothers and sisters, wisdom often arrives quietly. Those who speak less and think more are often closer to peace. Silence is not the absence of value, it is the presence of control. And when silence is chosen for the sake of Allah, it becomes an act of worship that protects you in this life and elevates you in the next. My dear brothers and sisters, words are not as light as we think they are. A single sentence spoken without thought can carry consequences that last a lifetime. Islam teaches us that the tongue is one of the most dangerous parts of the body, not because it is strong, but because it is fast. The tongue moves before the mind has time to reflect, and when that happens, damage is often already done. How many people have destroyed friendships, marriages, families, and reputations with a few careless words? How many hearts have been broken by statements that were said just like that? Words spoken without thought often come from ego, anger, jealousy, or the desire to be right. At that moment, a person is not thinking about accountability, consequences, or the hereafter. They are only thinking about releasing what is inside them, regardless of who gets hurt. A dangerous word is not always a loud one. Sometimes it is sarcasm. Sometimes it is mockery. Sometimes it is gossip shared casually. Sometimes it is a joke that humiliates someone. These words may feel small, but in the sight of Allah, they are heavy. A person may forget what they said, but the one who was hurt may remember it forever, and the angels have already written it down. Speaking without thinking is especially harmful during anger. Anger removes wisdom and replaces it with impulse. At that moment, the tongue becomes a weapon. You say things you don't mean, promises you won't keep, accusations you cannot prove. When calm returns, regret arrives, but the words cannot be taken back. Apologies may come later, but trust and peace do not always return the same way. There are also words that harm the speaker more than anyone else. Complaining excessively, spreading negativity, or constantly criticizing others poisons the heart. When a person speaks without reflection, they slowly harden their own soul. They become careless with sin, unaware that every word is part of their record with Allah. On the day of judgment, people will be shocked by statements they never thought mattered. A believer learns to pause before speaking. That pause is protection. That pause is wisdom. Before words leave your mouth, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And most importantly, will Allah be pleased with it? If the answer is no, then silence is safer. My dear brothers and sisters, uncontrolled speech is a doorway to regret, but thoughtful silence is a doorway to peace. Whoever learns to control their tongue has taken a major step toward protecting their faith, their relationships, and their akhirah. My dear brothers and sisters, guarding the tongue is not a small act in Islam. It is a powerful reflection of what lives inside the heart. When a person begins to control their speech, they are not just improving their manners, they are strengthening their faith. The tongue is closely connected to the heart, and whatever fills the heart eventually spills out through words. When faith is strong, speech becomes careful. When faith is weak, speech becomes reckless. A believer who guards their tongue becomes more conscious of Allah in everyday life. Before speaking, they remember that Allah hears every word, even those whispered softly or spoken in private. This awareness builds taqwa. You begin to realize that silence can earn reward just as much as speech can, sometimes even more. Holding back a harmful word for the sake of Allah is an act of worship that purifies the soul. When you protect your tongue, you also protect your relationships. Faith is not only about prayer and fasting, it is also about how you treat people. Harsh words, sarcasm, gossip, and backbiting slowly erode brotherhood and sisterhood. But when a believer speaks gently or chooses silence, hearts feel safe around them. People trust them, feel respected by them, and find peace in their presence. This is a sign of strong iman, because true faith softens behavior. Guarding the tongue also disciplines the ego. Many arguments are not about truth, they are about pride. The desire to win, to be right, or to have the last word often pushes people to speak unnecessarily. When you choose to remain silent for the sake of Allah, you humble your ego. You accept that pleasing Allah is more important than proving yourself. That humility strengthens faith and brings inner peace. There is also a deep connection between guarding the tongue and sincerity. A person who constantly speaks, boasts, or seeks attention through words may unknowingly weaken their intentions. But one who speaks less and remembers Allah more builds a private relationship with Him. Their faith becomes deeper, quieter, and more sincere. They focus less on impressing people and more on correcting themselves. My dear brothers and sisters, strengthening faith does not always come from adding new actions. Sometimes it comes from removing harmful habits. Controlling the tongue is one of the most powerful ways to do that. When your words become pure, your heart becomes lighter, your faith becomes stronger, and your connection with Allah becomes more meaningful. My dear brothers and sisters, life will test you, and many of those tests will come through moments of anger, difficulty, and confusion. In such moments, silence is not surrender, it is survival. When trials strike and emotions run high, the tongue becomes extremely dangerous. Words spoken during hardship or fitnah often deepen wounds instead of healing them. That is why Islam teaches restraint when emotions are intense. Anger, in particular, blinds wisdom. When a person is angry, they stop listening and start reacting. The heart burns, the mind rushes, and the tongue releases words that do not reflect who you truly are. These are the moments when silence becomes your greatest ally. By staying quiet, you prevent your anger from turning into sin. You protect yourself from saying something that could destroy relationships, dignity, or years of trust. During trials, people often feel misunderstood, unfairly treated, or emotionally overwhelmed. The natural reaction is to complain loudly, accuse others, or defend oneself aggressively. But a believer understands that not every test needs a verbal response. Sometimes Allah wants to see patience, not arguments. Silence during hardship allows your heart to turn toward Allah instead of people. It shifts your reliance from human approval to divine support. Fitnah spreads quickly through words. Rumors, assumptions, and emotional reactions can ignite chaos in families, communities, and even societies. Many people become part of fitnah not because they are evil, but because they speak without certainty or wisdom. Remaining silent during fitnah is an act of responsibility. It means you refuse to add fuel to the fire. It means you value peace over popularity and truth over noise. Silence also gives clarity. When emotions settle, truth becomes clearer. What felt urgent to say often feels unnecessary later. By waiting, you allow Allah to guide your response, if a response is even needed. This pause protects your heart from regret and your tongue from accountability on the day of judgment. My dear brothers and sisters, silence during anger, trials, and fitnah is not passive behavior. It is active patience. It is trust in Allah's timing and justice. Those who master silence in difficult moments are often the ones Allah elevates in wisdom and character. Because when the world pushes you to react, choosing silence for the sake of Allah becomes a sign of true strength and deep faith. My dear brothers and sisters, speech in Islam is not meant to be constant. It is meant to be purposeful. A believer does not speak simply because they can, but because their words carry benefit. When your intention is to please Allah, your tongue becomes disciplined and your speech becomes meaningful. Speaking only when it pleases Allah is a sign of spiritual awareness and self-control. There are words that bring light into a room and words that darken hearts. Words of kindness, reminders of Allah, advice given with sincerity, and speech that reconciles between people all carry immense reward. A single gentle sentence can heal a broken heart, guide a confused soul, or soften anger. These are words worth speaking because they draw people closer to Allah rather than pushing them away. At the same time, a believer learns to withhold speech that carries no benefit. Not every conversation needs your opinion, and not every debate needs your participation. Speaking excessively about others, complaining constantly, or engaging in useless talk slowly distances the heart from Allah. Even if such speech is not always sinful, it wastes time and weakens focus on what truly matters. Silence in these moments becomes a form of wisdom. Speaking to please Allah also means choosing the right time and tone. Truth spoken harshly can hurt more than it helps, while gentle words can deliver the same message with mercy. A believer understands that how something is said can be just as important as what is said. Wisdom is knowing when to speak, how much to say, and when silence will be more effective than words. This discipline trains the heart to remain connected to Allah throughout the day. Before speaking, you pause and ask yourself whether your words will earn reward or regret. That pause builds mindfulness and strengthens your relationship with Allah. Over time, your speech naturally becomes cleaner, calmer, and more sincere. My dear brothers and sisters, when speech is guided by the desire to please Allah, it becomes an act of worship. And when silence is chosen to avoid displeasing Him, it also becomes worship. A believer understands that both speech and silence are tools. Use them wisely, and your tongue will become a source of light in this world and a means of success in the next. My dear brothers and sisters, the message is clear and timeless. The tongue can be your greatest blessing or your greatest downfall. Allah has given us the ability to speak, but He has also taught us the wisdom of restraint. Not everything felt needs to be said, and not everything thought deserves a voice. True success lies in knowing the difference. Silence is not weakness, it is awareness. It protects you during anger, shields you during trials, and saves you during fitnah. It allows faith to grow, patience to deepen, and the heart to remain connected to Allah. And when words are spoken, they should be words that heal, guide, and please Allah, not words that inflate ego or spread harm. A believer learns that self-control is a form of worship. Guarding the tongue protects relationships in this world and records in the next. Every word is counted, and every moment of restraint is rewarded. On the day we stand before Allah, we will not regret the harmful words we never spoke, but we may regret the silence we failed to keep. So choose your words carefully and choose silence even more carefully. Let your speech be meaningful, your silence be intentional, and your heart be focused on pleasing Allah. Because sometimes the path to wisdom, peace, and success in the akhirah begins with a simple act of obedience, knowing when to keep your mouth shut. Thank you, everyone.